Every night, it began the same way. The village was silent, the streets were empty, the candles had burned low, and in a small room above a humble church, a priest prepared to sleep. But sleep rarely came, because almost every night strange things happened. Sounds echoed through the darkness, violent knocks, scratching against the walls, heavy impacts that shook furniture. Witnesses later described hearing noises so disturbing that they rushed to investigate. And yet, when they entered the room, there was no intruder, no animal, no explanation, only one exhausted priest kneeling in prayer. A priest who calmly claimed he knew exactly who was responsible. He believed the devil himself was trying to stop him. Now imagine being in that room. Imagine hearing those sounds. Imagine lying awake wondering if what you heard was real. Would you stay? Would you keep your faith? Or would fear eventually win? Tonight, we explore one of the most mysterious stories in Christian history. The story of Saint John Vianney, a humble priest, a forgotten village, and a series of terrifying events that continue to fascinate believers and skeptics alike. Stay with me until the very end, because the final event we'll discuss changed everything and left even witnesses struggling to explain what they had seen and heard. But before the strange nights began, John Vianney was simply a boy, and nobody expected him to become a saint. He was born in France in 1786. The world he entered was unstable. Violence, political chaos, and religious persecution surrounded his early years. Priests were hunted, churches were attacked, faith itself was becoming dangerous. As a young boy, John secretly attended Mass whenever possible. His family often risked everything simply to practice their faith. Yet despite his devotion, John was not considered gifted. He struggled in school. He struggled with Latin. He struggled with academic studies. Many believed he would never become a priest. Even his teachers doubted him. Again and again, he failed examinations. Again and again, people told him he wasn't capable. But there was one thing nobody could deny: his determination. While others relied on talent, John relied on perseverance. While others gave up, he continued. Year after year, obstacle after obstacle, failure after failure. Eventually, against all expectations, he was ordained. Few could have imagined what would happen next. He was sent to a tiny village called Ars, a place so small and forgotten that many considered it unimportant. But God often works through places the world ignores, and Ars was about to become famous across the world. At first, nothing seemed extraordinary. The village was ordinary, the church was modest, the people lived simple lives. Yet slowly something began to change. People listened to his sermons, they returned to prayer, they reconciled with God. Families healed, communities transformed, visitors started arriving, then more arrived, and more. Before long, thousands traveled incredible distances simply to speak with this humble priest. What they did not know was that behind the scenes, a battle was beginning, a battle that would take place not in public, not before crowds, but in the darkness of a small room. And according to Saint John Vianney, someone did not want his mission to succeed. The first disturbances seemed small, easy to dismiss: a strange sound, a sudden bang, a noise in the middle of the night. Nothing unusual, or so it seemed, but the incidents continued. Night after night, week after week, the sounds became louder, more violent, more impossible to ignore. Witnesses reported hearing furniture move, doors shake, walls vibrate, heavy impacts echoing through the room. Sometimes the noises were so intense that nearby residents believed someone was attacking the building. People rushed to investigate, yet when they arrived, they found nothing. No intruder, no thief, no animal, nothing that could explain what they had heard. For many people, these events would have been terrifying, but John Vianney remained remarkably calm. In fact, his reactions surprised everyone. He rarely appeared frightened. Instead, he often smiled, and he gave a name to whatever was tormenting him. He called it the Grappin, a nickname he used when speaking about the devil. According to his own accounts, he believed these nightly disturbances were spiritual attacks, attempts to distract him, attempts to exhaust him, attempts to stop the work he was doing. And yet something strange happened. The attacks seemed to follow a pattern. Whenever the disturbances became especially intense, something extraordinary often happened the following day. A difficult sinner would return to faith. Someone far from God would experience conversion. Lives would change. John began to notice the connection, and eventually he reached a surprising conclusion. The stronger the attacks became, the more important the next day's work would be. Imagine that for a moment. Imagine hearing terrifying noises every night. Yet instead of feeling defeated, you begin seeing them as signs that something good is about to happen. That was how John Vianney viewed the situation. The fear that would have broken most people became fuel for his mission. But then came one night that shocked everyone. a night that would become one of the most famous incidents in his life. He was asleep when chaos erupted. Violent sounds filled the room. Witnesses later described hearing crashes and disturbances unlike anything before. Then came the smell of smoke. People rushed toward the building. A fire had started. The room was damaged. The danger was real. Yet somehow John survived. And even after such a frightening event, he refused to abandon his work. Think about that. Most people would have moved. Most people would have taken precautions. Most people would have spent the rest of their lives haunted by fear. But John continued hearing confessions, continued praying, continued serving others, as if nothing could stop him. At this point in the story, if you're enjoying these incredible stories of saints, miracles, and mysteries hidden throughout history, subscribe to Divine Eternal Stories. We explore the moments that changed lives, inspired generations, and continue to fascinate people around the world. And trust me, the most important lesson from Saint John Vianney's story is still ahead, because the real miracle wasn't the noises, it wasn't the fire, it wasn't even the mystery. The real miracle was what happened inside the man himself. As the years passed, Saint John Vianney became one of the most respected priests in the world. People traveled for days, sometimes weeks, simply to meet him. They came seeking guidance, forgiveness, hope, peace, and somehow, despite his exhaustion, despite the disturbances, despite the constant demands placed upon him, he continued, day after day, year after year. What makes this story so powerful isn't merely the mystery. It is the response, because every person watching this video faces struggles. Maybe not mysterious noises in the middle of the night, but fears, doubts, worries, obstacles, moments that try to convince us to stop moving forward. Moments that whisper, give up, you're not strong enough, you can't continue. Saint John Vianney heard those voices too. Whether you interpret his experiences spiritually, psychologically, or historically, one fact remains undeniable. He refused to surrender. He transformed fear into courage, opposition into purpose, difficulty into determination. And perhaps that is why his story continues inspiring people nearly 2 centuries later. Not because strange things happened, but because those strange things failed to break him. Today, millions remember him as the patron saint of parish priests. His life continues to inspire believers around the world. His village of Ars remains a place of pilgrimage, and the stories of those mysterious nights are still discussed, debated, and explored. Some people see spiritual warfare, others see unexplained phenomena, others remain uncertain. But everyone agrees on one thing. Something extraordinary happened in the life of Saint John Vianney, and the courage he displayed continues to inspire people today. Imagine standing in that room, hearing those sounds, feeling the fear. Now imagine choosing faith anyway. Imagine choosing courage anyway. Imagine continuing your mission, despite every obstacle placed in your path. That choice is what transformed John Vianney from an ordinary priest into one of the most beloved saints in Christian history. And perhaps that is the true lesson hidden within this mysterious story. Darkness is not defined by how loudly it attacks. Light is defined by how firmly it refuses to disappear. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of history's most fascinating saint stories. Now I'd love to hear from you. What do you think? Were these events genuine spiritual attacks, misunderstood phenomena, or something we may never fully explain? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I read every comment, and your perspective helps make these conversations even more meaningful. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more incredible stories of saints, miracles, mysteries, and faith. Until next time, keep seeking the stories hidden beyond the ordinary.